We begin here in Japan, where 14 out of 47 prefectures have reported record-high daily coronavirus infections. Nationwide, the total figures top 7,000 for the first time since January. The northern prefecture of Hokkaido reported 403 cases. The prefecture is preparing to implement stricter anti-infection measures starting on Sunday in the capital, Sapporo.
This will be the last chance to prevent the virus from spreading across the prefecture. We must stop the infections in Sapporo at all costs.
Local authorities will ask restaurants and bars in the city not to serve alcohol. Tokyo confirmed over 1,000 new cases on Saturday. That's the highest since the current state of emergency started on April 25th. It's also the first time in a week that the daily tally in the metropolis has exceeded 1,000. Figures for the western prefecture of Osaka also topped 1,000 for 2 days in a row. It reported 41 deaths. The central government announced on Friday that it is going to extend the state of emergency until the end of this month. It is also expanding it to include 2 more prefectures, bringing the number under the state of emergency to 6. India's daily COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 4,000 for the first time. The surge in cases is putting a tremendous strain on the country's healthcare system. The Indian government reported a record 4,187 fatalities on Saturday. The daily tally of new infections has topped 400,000 for 3 days in a row. Many patients are dying as medical oxygen and hospital beds remain in short supply. Local government officials in the capital have stated the situation regarding the medical oxygen supply is improving. They say oxygen-generating plants sent by the international community are being installed at hospitals. But the amount of oxygen being supplied in New Delhi as of Thursday only added up to about 60% of the actual demand. Government officials are racing to enhance medical systems by distributing medical supplies arriving from abroad to every state. European Union leaders say recent proposals to waive patents on coronavirus vaccines won't have a short-term impact. Instead, they're urging countries that make shots to boost exports. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke after EU leaders met on Friday. She said the bloc is open to discussions on temporarily waiving patents as suggested by poorer nations that are struggling to get vaccines. But she said such plans wouldn't provide a fast solution. And she called on vaccine-producing countries to export more. French President Emmanuel Macron echoed the view. He questioned giving intellectual property to laboratories that may not have the expertise to quickly start churning out shots. He also accused Britain and the U.S. of blocking exports of vaccines and their ingredients. Members of the World Trade Organization have been discussing whether to temporarily lift patent protections to increase vaccine supplies to the developing world. The U.S. administration has expressed its support for the move. The British government says it will allow international travel to gradually resume from mid-May as coronavirus cases there continue to decline.
I'm glad to be standing here today announcing the first, albeit tentative, steps towards unlocking international travel. We want a summer in which, with the help of vaccines and testings, we can reunite families and friends, travel to places we love.
The government will apply different levels of restrictions to people returning from countries based on traffic light colors. From May 17th, residents who have visited green list countries will not be required to quarantine. 12 countries and territories, including Israel and Australia, are on that list. The government says people should still avoid leisure travel to many destinations. Japan is among the countries on the amber list. India and other countries where infections remain serious are on the red list. The government plans to review the color-coded list every 3 weeks. A senior Iranian official says his country may consider cooperating further with the International Atomic Energy Agency on the issue of nuclear site inspections.
We hope that we make enough progress, so there will be no need for extension of that understanding, but if needed, we would consider at its proper time.
The Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister spoke to NHK in Vienna on Friday. Abbas Araghchi is leading Iran's delegation in the indirect nuclear talks with the United States. Those meetings are now underway in the Austrian capital. Iran has indicated it will stop allowing the IAEA to conduct inspections if no progress is made on the issues by late May. Tehran wants the sanctions imposed by the U.S. removed. The IAEA's Director General spoke to NHK last month. Rafael Grossi said the agency may need to talk about the matter with Iran again if no agreement is reached by the signatories to the 2015 nuclear deal. Araghchi and Grossi are believed to have discussed the issue on Thursday when they met in Vienna at the IAEA headquarters. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has urged members of the UN Security Council to abide by the body's rules and respect the sovereignty of other countries. Blinken appeared to have China and Russia in mind as he addressed a Security Council meeting on Friday. He said Washington will continue to push back forcefully when countries undermine international order.
When UN member states, particularly permanent members of the Security Council, flout these rules and block attempts to hold accountable those who violate international law, it sends the message that others can break those rules with impunity.
Blinken also said asserting domestic jurisdiction doesn't give any state a blank check to enslave, torture, disappear, ethnically cleanse their people, or violate their human rights. China and Russia often condemn outside criticism as foreign interference. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi chaired the session. He said he was sure all countries want to see the United States changing course and making a real contribution to multilateralism. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said leading Western countries are trying to roll back the process of forming a multipolar world. The U.S. military is keeping a sharp eye on a large Chinese rocket due to fall back to Earth in what experts describe as an uncontrolled re-entry. There are concerns debris from the rocket may fail to burn up in the atmosphere. The U.S. military says the Long March 5B rocket is currently expected to re-enter the atmosphere over waters off New Zealand at 2:52 UTC on Sunday, give or take 6 hours. But it adds the location could vary widely.
The U.S. Space Command, they are tracking that very closely and will provide warning once they get a little bit more fidelity on where it will re-enter.
China launched the rocket on April 29th as part of a project to build its own space station. Those were the stories for this hour.
Officials in Afghanistan say at least 30 people have been killed and more than 50 others injured in a blast at a school in the capital, Kabul. Many of those who died were schoolgirls who'd just finished class. European Union leaders have sidestepped a plea by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to waive patents on coronavirus vaccines, agreeing merely to cooperate more. The United States has called for calm in Jerusalem, where there have been clashes between Israeli police and Palestinians over moves to evict local residents to make room for Jewish settlers. Parts of China's largest rocket, launched last week, are expected to plunge back through the atmosphere later today or early tomorrow. China says most of the debris will burn on re-entry and is highly unlikely to cause any harm.